I think we've got everything.
There's probably some junk in there we can use. If not, we'll just use the part where I say there's probably some junk in there we can use. There's our cold open.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you.
Well, it's another beautiful day in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Yes, it is, Steven.
And it's a beautiful day in our neighborhood, too.
Yeah, it's all right.
I'm Steven,
I'm Andrew.
and this is Please Won't You Be My Podcast.
Please, won't you be my podcast?
So what episode have we got today?
We've got, this will be, I guess, the 4th episode.
Episode 4.
The first note I have about this episode is I didn't even know he was pregnant because Mr. Rogers is setting up a baby.
A playpen, yes.
It's sort of a playpen crib.
Yes.
Could be either one of those things.
And then he says he's got a friend to go in it.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, he's not expecting.
But then he goes outside and he reaches down on the stoop, and I was like, Mr. Rogers, the stoop is not where you leave a baby.
Well, no, but he says he's putting the blanket in, and he's like, this is a dog blanket. Oh, I gave it away. So he
didn't give it away
ghost.
for me. I wasn't paying.
You weren't paying close enough attention. I was taking notes, and I wonder if that was legitimate or something they put in on purpose. If he really didn't mean to say it was a dog blanket.
Well, with the number of other flubs that happen in this episode,
because as we learned this episode definitively, no second takes on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Nope. One and done.
Yeah, it's really reminded me why I love this show.
Yeah. So
after the last episode, it's a little dry, but this one's juicy.
This one picks up. There's some stuff in this. So he brings the dog in. It's sort of a Saint Bernard.
I guess that would have been my guess.
I called it Mini Beethoven.
Yeah,
because it's one of the dogs from the Beethoven series of films, which I never watched, but was very aware of because I was a child in the 90s.
Very thoroughly advertised to our demographic.
I think there was a trailer for one on the VHS to Free Willy, which, again, because of when I was born, I saw 50 times.
The dog's name was Lydia Stout.
Which is a great name for a dog.
I agree. A first and last name is always important for a dog.
Yeah, and it is a very stout dog. And just like a person name.
Yeah.
I like that in a dog.
And then Mr. Rogers sings a song he's about to explain it, and then he realizes, wait, I already have a very specific song for this. And then he sings a song about how some fences are good and some fences are bad.
Yeah.
And
it really goes on an arc, because the first verse is all about fences he hates that keep him out, and I'm like, all right, Mr. Rogers, kind of an anarchist. I'm into it. But then the second one is like, well, some fences keep you safe. I'm like, okay, so he's taking sort of a moderate, medium-sized government. And then in the last verse, he decides that the good fences are good and the bad fences he can live with. So he's kind of veering towards totalitarianism there, I feel like. Or at least the possibility for it.
Yes.
He is pro-authority.
And then immediately after that song, he decides to play hide and seek with us.
First with the dog, but the dog is already asleep.
Yeah.
He says.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he understands hide.
I don't know if he understands. He understands hide, certainly. I don't know if he understands. I mean, it's hard to play hide and seek when the other half is non-present.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
He goes outside and then he waits 2 seconds and then he comes back inside.
He crawls outside, really.
Oh, yes.
He doesn't want us. I mean, we can all see him leaving the house, but he makes sure to crawl below waist level out the door. As he's leaving, he assures us he'll be back, and sure enough,
maybe it made more sense when the dog was awake. Later. Maybe it had a whole thing, and then he's like,
there was a whole dog sket.
The dog is asleep.
I don't know.
What am I supposed to
skit there?
It's like a sketch in a skit.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, or I've just been watching Americans talk for too long now. Although, is Mr. Rogers American? Because
yes.
the next thing that happens is Mr. McFeely knocks on the door. He has a package which he asks Mr. Rogers to sign for.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers hasn't ordered a package, and Mr. McFeely says, first of all, he says, well, look inside, there's a note that will explain it. And I'm like, Mr. McFeely, are you going through people's mail?
I think Mr. McFeely knows exactly what's in
That's
every
a federal
package.
offense.
Or he's just present when they're packing it.
But again, is it a federal offense? Because the package is from King Friday.
Yep. KF13, as
Yep.
I have started referring to him in my
KF13.
notes. He gets a mystery package from King Friday the 13th, which is a punch clock.
Yes.
Now
at first, I think we have an answer to a previous question, which is, does Mr. Rogers work for King Friday? And he's cracking down on him.
Right.
But then he plays with the punch clock for a while, and it is what it is. And
It's a
then
punch clock.
he decides to call up King Friday on his tin can phone. So he calls up King Friday, who reveals that it wasn't a gift.
No, it's a legal requirement for
Yeah,
anyone wanting
it's
to
a law.
come to and leave
That
from.
Everybody
The land
now
of make-
is
make-believe.
getting, which raises the question, is Mr. Rogers under the rule of King Friday the 13th?
I think just because, well, like we haven't seen him go to the land of make believe, but he does travel there with his mind. So
Yeah.
maybe he has to, and he did have to punch the card. Maybe because, like his back wall is connected to the land of make believe. He's under sort of the
Maybe.
jurisdiction.
See, I've been playing a lot of Crusader Kings too, which means I'm thinking about medieval politics structures a lot. So now I'm wondering if Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, or maybe just Mr. Rogers' house, are a vassal of King Friday the 13th and sort of fall under his realm.
I mean, based on what we saw in this episode, that might be true.
It seems like it might be. And he doesn't specify, when he says everybody's getting a punch clock, we don't know if that means like the bakery or Mrs. Lampshades.
Right.
I've already forgotten her name.
Prolificate.
Mrs. Prolificate. Yeah. We don't know if she has a punch clock, but we know that everybody in
Make Believe
has one, including, well, let's go to the land of Make Believe and check in.
Yeah, sure.
Unless you've got something else.
No, I just have to grab the clock cards.
Oh yeah, we got to punch in or punch out.
Here's yours.
Thank you.
I liked how Mr. Rogers, when he was hanging up, he says, "Have a nice day," and then King Friday responds, "You mean a brave and strong day?"
Yeah, he's got the.
That's like the official motto, brave and strong.
He's good on rhetoric. I'll give him that.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to.
Oh, here we go. Punch clock.
Yep. Punch clock sound.
All right, and now we're in the land of make believe.
Now we're in the land of make believe.
So this, I started just denoting the scenes in my notes with character names.
Yeah.
And this scene features Daniel and Joe and Fly.
Yes.
So Mr. Joe Negri
is setting up a time clock.
He's setting up time clocks at all of the locations.
Everybody's got one. Even Lady Elaine Fairchild has one, which I can't imagine she is aware of or happy about.
I mean, she's been AWOL for the past 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. With Joe Negri's tall enough, he can just set it up everywhere. X the Owl and
Henrietta
Pussycat share a punch clock, which I feel like is complicated for bookkeeping reasons.
Is it?
Well, I mean
don't
know.
Don't most companies have one punch clock, and then you just use multiple cards?
I mean, yeah, I just feel like they're like, I guess they count as one location, but you don't know who's at X's and who's at Henrietta's. If one of them starts. I mean, it's a very low key way of doing Big Brother. No cameras or anything. Just
honor
punch
system.
in, punch out. Everybody knows where everybody is.
It's a dictatorship that operates on the honor system.
Yeah, well, it's very land of make believe, I suppose, in that respect.
So, anyways, as he's installing this time clock card for Daniel Tiger notices a fly that's buzzing around the set,
which happened to Lady Aberlin a few episodes ago.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
She just sort of didn't acknowledge it, but. Daniel Tiger acknowledges it.
And then
batting at him.
And he ignores it at first, but then it like lands on him again and he like freaks out. He's like, the fly is back.
Yeah. So Joe Negri's swatting at it and Daniel Tiger wants his ear scratched where it landed. It's a whole thing.
And then they get the clock installed, and then they do some rhymes.
Yeah, about how it's a clock on a clock, and there's a knocker on the clock.
Yeah, I don't know if their prepositions were really accurate in that rhyme. They said it was a knock on a clock, but really the clock was only on the clock, and the knock was on the clock. The knock wasn't on the clock on the clock.
Also, none of the clocks in the land of make-believe have hands. Which is, maybe that's like a dream thing where you can't read when you're having a dream.
Yeah, or
maybe
like
you can't tell time when you're in the land of make-believe.
Maybe. Yeah, so anything else that happens there with that?
I mean, Joe Negri leaves, and as Daniel Tiger's leaving, he knocks the clock, which Joe Negri has ostensibly been nailing to this clock. He immediately knocks it over to falls
Daniel Tiger knocks it over, and so Joe Negri picks it up again and affixes it to the clock one more time.
Yeah, but just pushing it real hard to ensure that, no, really, I am doing something. It's not a cardboard box I'm setting on a ledge. But to no avail, because as the camera's panning away,
he knocks it over another time. And he's like, oh no, I knocked it over again. And at this point, Joe Negri's like, this scene is over.
He's off camera, so he might go back and fix it, because we sort of pan over alone to, I've forgotten his name again. Edgar, who is singing, I think, my favorite Edgar song.
What song is that?
Of all time. It's about how barbed wire is very sharp.
Right, because there's now barbed wire, which they never really mention aside from his humming.
Yeah, just there's barbed wire on the castle now. Now, by barbed wire, of course, we mean chicken wire.
Yes.
It's not barbed wire in any sense. It's just a half a foot high little bit of trim around the castle, which is very high if you're a puppet.
It's true.
So
it's not keeping any adults out of the castle, though.
But I think the fact that it's a very small castle is keeping the adults out. And so we cross past, I think, does Joe even say hi?
Yeah, he says hi briefly to Edgar, and then he says hi to the trolley, I think.
Yeah.
But then he takes another...
Pass on to the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, he's taking one more time clock machine.
Yes.
And
we discover why there's an Eiffel Tower.
Because there's a French tiger. Named
Grand-Père. And the reason he's a French tiger is because it turns out Mr. Rogers, or Fred Rogers, the actor and puppeteer,
pretty good at French.
Speaks a surprising amount of French, yeah. I'm by no means fluent in French, but I know enough to know that, he's saying things that make sense and almost, short sentences.
The first thing we really learn about Grand-Père, besides the fact that he's French.
Yeah.
He's got a mean right hook.
Yeah.
In his
so he doesn't understand. He claims to not understand the concept of a punch clock.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because he's physically punching the time clock card and pretending not to understand.
And punching the clock.
He's exploiting his English as a second language as misunderstanding the rules for a punch clock card.
I just wrote down here, the French know how to deal with despots.
Yeah, I wrote down anti-state comedy.
Yeah.
And Joe Negri kind of plays along with it because, like, he doesn't explain, you have to use the card. He's just like, oh yeah, you love to punch it, right?
Yeah. At one point, and this is a fun bit that certainly none of the kids watching, well, very few of the kids watching would get. Grand-Père's punched the clock a couple times, and Joe Negri's like, no, soft. You have to do it softly. But to convey this, he says piano, which is Italian and not French.
See.
So Joe Negri speaks very little French.
I couldn't tell you what the French word for soft is, though.
I could have on a better day.
Yeah, so Grand-Père, over the course of this scene, I think, punches the clock and punches it out of Joe's hands into the ground, maybe like 5 times.
Then the trolley comes by, and Grand-Père, again, keeping this clock from being installed as long as possible, is like, go show the clock to Trolley. And then he's like, hey, Trolley, punch the clock. And I'm like, I see what this guy's after. He wants that trolley to run that clock over. Because if Trolley wants to, he could destroy that clock.
Well, before we went to the make-believe scene, when Mr. Rogers was talking to the trolley, he asked the trolley whether he has to punch a time clock card. And the trolley jingles, and then Mr. Rogers says, yeah, I thought so. And I'm wondering what the trolley said. Did he say, like, I'm not bound by human borders or something?
No, I can't. Yes, I do.
Well, we don't know.
I mean, if anything should run on a schedule, it's probably the trolley.
It's true.
I mean, maybe it's...
he would also have a serial number as a trolley. So
the
really...
serial number does have or the trolley has a serial number, I think.
I'm just saying that all of these
Oh,
edicts apply fairly easily to a trolley.
Trolleys are not people.
No.
This trolley is a people.
Yes.
Much like Herbie.
Yes.
From the film The Love Bug. But the trolley doesn't want to punch the clock, so Grandpere's revolutionary aims are thwarted. We never do see if it gets set up, though.
I think he'll just keep punching that clock out of protest.
Yeah, I think he's not going to put up with this. He's going to passive resist his way.
And then not much else happens in the land.
Not much else happens. The trolley carries on its way, and we head back to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
All right, time to clock out then.
All right.
Punch.
Punch clock noise.
Punch.
Good night, Sam.
Good night, Ralph.
That's the one.
Right.
Yeah. Good reference.
Yep. You're great.
Thank you.
And we're back in the real world.
And we're back in the real world. Mr. Rogers says some stuff. I don't remember what. Oh yeah,
he talks about the rhyming that Daniel Tiger and Joe Negri were doing, and then he says, you can do rhymes like that. Like you could say the boy on the chair with the chair by the table. And I was like, Mr. Rogers, none of those things rhymed. And then he does another one which also doesn't rhyme. I think he forgot that he said the word rhyme and must have just been thinking poetry.
You're just thinking about raps.
Yeah.
Just thinking about prepositions. And he covers for Grandpere saying that he doesn't understand. He's probably never heard of a punch clock before. And I mean, maybe that's true. My understanding is that they are more laissez-faire about, business hours in France. But I have it in my notes. Grandpere knows exactly what he's doing.
Yes. He's just being flippant.
I also, after I was done watching the episode, I took to Google image search to try to establish if Grandpere and Daniel Tiger were different people. I think they are. I don't think it's
you don't think it's just a beret?
I don't think it's just Daniel Tiger wearing a mustache and a beret, either in or out of canon.
Okay. That makes for
he's
less
a bit
confusing.
more striped.
Anyways, then Mr. Rogers has some neighbors.
Yeah, there's a knock at his back door. Some kids come in. He doesn't seem to have met them before.
He knows their names, though.
Yeah, I mean, he knows their names, but he doesn't know which names go with who.
Oh, he doesn't.
He says, like, are you, or you're, he does that thing you do when you're meeting someone you've heard of. He's sort
right. The kids' names are Rich, TT, and Kevin.
Yeah, and so he figures out who's who, but he's not sure, which is why I have in my notes, oh good, there's an adult who comes in behind them, because,
Mrs. Sanders.
Mrs. Sanders. I wasn't sure if it was Mr. Saunders or Mrs. Saunderson.
Oh, Saunders, yeah.
Yeah.
Saunders,
Saunders. And so they all sit down at the kitchen table.
And they enact what would become the hottest Google image search for Mr. Rogers.
I have it in my notes. Oh, it's this one.
So I don't know if this is like a commonly sung song. It's Frère Jacques.
Ironically enough, it's a French song, but it's the English version.
Grandpere is going to have a beef with this.
But the French song.
They sing a song about the different fingers.
Yeah, where is Thumbkin is, I think, a known quantity in the children's
so you got
song.
Thumbkin, Pointer, Tall Man. I'm counting on my fingers so I remember.
Yeah.
Ringfinger, who does not get a cool name. He's
just what he is.
Ringfinger and
Pinky.
Pinky.
He doesn't stand up so good. I mean, Pinky doesn't really get a cool name either.
Yeah, Thumbkin is the hot item.
Thumbkin has the good name. I mean, Tall Man's an all right name.
Yeah, tall. Anyways, the song involves raising your tall man.
Each of your fingers individually.
So lots of good screen caps of Mr. Rogers flipping off a bunch of children.
Yeah. And he sort of laughs as he does it, and I think at one point laughs and looks to the crew. So I feel like he knows what's happening.
Okay.
I feel like he's aware of what has done, what has been done.
But I think one of the kids, I think Kevin maybe, cannot
barely paying
cannot
attention.
grasp these actions.
Yeah.
They're too advanced for
I mean,
him.
they're very authentic TV kids in that earlier when Mr. Rogers asks them what they've been doing today, they just sort of sit in silence until eventually
They're like, we've been waiting in a green room for the last 15 minutes. They gave us a couple toys.
until Mrs. Saunders kindly suggests that they've been playing.
Right.
Yeah. Or offers that little bit of
and then they sing another song.
about birds or something.
Little turtle dove.
I was distracted at this
Molasses
point
candy.
trying to track down exactly when flipping the bird became.
And did you come up with a date?
The pre this.
Okay.
Certainly, there's an example of it in a silent film
Okay.
with Harold Lloyd where he does it to a mirror. But
Pretty funny.
But as Wikipedia points out, we're not entirely sure what is meant by it in that scene.
And then Mr. Rogers, as he's bidding the children and Miss Saunders farewell, he tells them that he doesn't have any food for them because the power went out, and you know how that goes.
Yeah. So all Mr. Rogers' food has gone bad.
I was he said he didn't have any food, and I was assuming this was Brockett, Chef Brockett. I thought that he was out of food because Chef Brockett ate him out of house and home.
Came in and used all of his food to make a.
But no, he just my fridge broke and everything got bad.
Everything went bad.
Which I thought was a weird bit of.
It's a weird detail.
That clearly couldn't have happened on. There wasn't actual food on the set.
No. There's a reason he never opens that door all the way.
Presumably, this is just something that happened in Mr. Rogers' life, and he wanted to I
kind of feel like it's Fred Rogers has it so deeply enshrined in his character that when people come over, you offer them food.
Oh, and so he needed the only explanation.
We need to explain why I'm not giving my guests something to eat.
Right. I mean, Mr. McFeely's in a hurry, so he.
Mr. McFeely never stops to eat. But Daniel Tiger at one point says that he can never get Mr. McFeely to stop. Mr. McFeely visits in the land of make-believe when they're setting up the clock. I don't remember why or what for.
I think he gives him another clock, maybe? I'm not sure either.
Maybe he gives him the other clock for the Eiffel Tower.
Because
it's a box.
King Friday the 13th is mailing each one separately, even though he's getting one handyman to install them.
Yeah, and even though it's a very small neighborhood, you could just have them all at the castle. I mean, maybe he orders them, right? Maybe he couldn't order them all in bulk. He had to order them individually.
Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, he couldn't get a regular supplier. It would explain why Mr. Rogers has a different clock than everybody else.
Right, the ones in the land of make-believe look significantly more proppish.
Significantly more cardboard box.
Yeah. So then, as they're leaving, Mr. Rogers encourages all the children to punch the time clock card.
Yeah.
Presumably he's saying, this is the world we live in now, children. You gotta get used to it.
Mr. Rogers, not the revolutionary force that Grand-Père is.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers is gonna just toe the
Grand-Père
line.
would be like, hey, kids, come spit on this clock with me.
Come kick this clock. This is what we do to fascists in France. We chop their heads off.
Yeah. And then after they leave, Mr. Rogers has to go back to work again. So he grabs Lydia Stout.
Lydia Stout, the dog.
And he takes the time clock card and he punches out.
He punches out for Lydia Stout too.
Oh, he does. I missed that.
The dog must also punch out. Which, given the
so maybe Mr. Rogers.
Of the land of make-believe.
I was going to say maybe Mr. Rogers is protesting in his own way.
Oh, maybe
abiding by the.
I feel like Lydia Stout probably qualifies for full citizenship under the rules of the land of make-believe.
Yeah, she's probably sentient in that world.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, certainly Mr. Rogers suggests that she has an opinion on fences. Earlier on.
I figured he was just good at talking to animals.
Yeah, but if you can talk to an animal, then the animal can talk.
As he's taking off his sweater, he grabs the clip-on mic, presumably, and it makes this awful noise.
Oh, I missed that.
I'm like, boy, they better figure this out by episode 800. He goes to unzip his sweater, and it's like,
in the house.
And I'm like, nobody considered this? I don't know.
I mean, it's a perennial
have to see if they get it resolved by the next episode.
Mics. Yeah, next episode 5, the end of the first week.
And hopefully the end of this story, because after episode 5, we move on to a later point in the series.
Yeah, I mean,
so if the story's not resolved this week,
if there's no resolution, we'll just have to make our own resolution
or look it up. That would be more fun, I think.
Yeah, we could do both.
So I think that's about it.
I think that's about it. We are on iTunes now. I checked. We've showed up in the store.
Yeah,
and
you
everything.
can now subscribe on iTunes and leave a nice review or comment or something.
Yeah, leave us a review. Apparently that's important.
Our theme song is provided by Dan Brisbane, and our trolley transition tune is made by Rhymedale. We'll be back when the week is new, and we'll have more ideas for you. Andrew, I know you'll have things you'd like to talk about.
I will.
All right, well, I will too.
So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please, won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please, won't you be my podcast?
Oh, it's very sharp, it's very sharp. Oh, my barbed wire is very sharp. Oh, Mr. Negri,